So for community colleges, there are about 115 different community colleges. There are more local options than other universities, so they are within your community. Usually students tend to attend the community college within their community because it's easier to travel to. And keep in mind that community colleges do not have dorm rooms. So you are commuting to the community college. They are commuter schools. At the bottom here, you can see some of the local community colleges that may be within your area.
All right, and then before I start presenting everybody, hi, my name is Olivia De La O. I work with our post-secondary program, particularly with our community college students. So that's why I'm joining today. So I'll introduce myself a little bit later at the end more, but I just wanted to make sure y'all know who I was. Okay, so touching on admissions for community college, as you can see here, the list isn't that long. So to gain admissions, you need to be 18 years old or older, or graduate from high school, or have a high school equivalent. So if you check any one of those boxes, then you are eligible to attend community college.
All right, so we can go ahead and go into the cost. So there's certain fixed costs that you need to consider when applying to community college. So it's about $46 per unit. Each class is typically 3 to 4 units. And there is a student health fee. You also have to include the fee for the ID card. So that's included with the fixed costs. When it comes to variable costs, that includes like books and materials, lab fees. So those costs can range, and you can always adjust like the amount that you spend on those. And then there are parking permits if you do have a car and you decide to park on campus. And there's also public transportation. So if you take the bus, you can purchase a bus pass. But keep in mind that the variable costs will change, and you can always like budget and adjust those costs.
Okay, so financial aid. So I'm sure this is a big one for everybody. Everyone's always thinking about how to pay for college. So a lot of the information is similar to a four-year university. So you would apply first to the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, depending on your status. You are eligible to receive a Cal Grant, which is Cal Grant B or C, a Pell Grant, which is specifically from filling out the FAFSA. And there are a couple options that are specific to community college. So there's something called a Student Success Completion Grant, which means if you're enrolled in 15 units or more, then you're eligible to receive an additional award. So this is brand new for this year. So a lot of our current community college students weren't really sure what this was, so they got a nice surprise in their financial aid award package. But this is something new that you will be eligible for when you apply for financial aid. There is also an EOPS grant that you can be eligible for. So that's based on the financial information that you put into your FAFSA or your DREAM Act if you're eligible for the EOPS program. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is later in the presentation. There are other institutional awards specific to community college campuses. For example, the Santa Monica College Promise Grant, right? So Santa Monica College sets their own guidelines. You must be enrolled full-time and meet other requirements, and you'll be able to receive additional money. And then there's also the California Promise Grant, which again, depending on the income information that you put on your FAFSA or your California DREAM Act, you'll be eligible to receive free tuition. So as you can see, a lot of the financial aid options are really centered on completing that FAFSA or that California DREAM Act. So I'm sure as Ms. Diane has helped you all this year fill out your financial aid applications, it's going to continue to be really, really important to do that throughout your time in community college and beyond.
So why do students select community college? Keep in mind that sometimes it is lower cost of classes. So if you feel like, you know, some of the schools that you got admitted to might be a little more expensive and you may not have the funds to pay for that, community college is always an option. Staying local after graduation if you want to stay closer to home. That's another thing to keep in mind, concerns about attending a four-year. So if for some reason you feel like you're not ready to go straight into a four-year college, then you can attend a community college for the first 2 years, and able to raise your GPA. So you have to consider that, you know, community college, if you weren't necessarily happy with your GPA, you know, in high school, you can always start fresh at a community college. So it's important to kind of consider that, especially when it comes time to applying to the four-year schools or to transferring to the four-year schools. That's something to always consider, to think about like, okay, I'm starting fresh here. Let me make sure that, you know, I maintain my GPA, I can raise my GPA, and that I follow through with my classes once I'm in community college. Keep in mind that you also can get certificates and different vocational programs that are offered there. And again, you can transfer. So going back to the certificates, you can earn a certificate. You don't have to necessarily transfer, but a lot of times it is a popular route to go ahead and transfer to the four-year school. And you can obtain an associate's degree as well.
So this just goes down the list of the degrees and certificates that Diane was talking about right now. So you can get an Associates of Arts, which is an AA. So if you want to get an associate's degree in English, for example, you would get an AA. You can get an Associates of Science. So say you want to get an associate's degree in biology. You can get an associate's degree for transfer, which we'll talk a little bit later about as well as a transfer pathway. You can get a transfer certificate. So that's a little bit different than a degree. So again, we'll talk about what that difference is too. A vocational certificate. So if you did a program such as automotive engineering, or maybe you took cosmetology courses, right? And you got a vocational certificate. And at certain community colleges, there's very specialized bachelor's degrees programs. A lot of them have to do with aviation or some type of specialized engineering. So again, very specialized programs. Not very many of our students that I know of have pursue these programs as of right now, but they may become more popular. So we'll see.
Okay, so when it comes to associate degrees, when you're applying, you do have the option to select if you would like to earn an associate's degree, if you just want to go in and receive a certificate in pretty much like what you want to study. So there's AAs, which is the Associates of Arts, and then there's also an Associates for Science programs. So these are typically 2-year programs. Again, you can earn an associate's degree and also transfer to a 4-year school. Students gain an introductory level of understanding of their selected area of study. So you usually take, the intro classes to your area of study. And courses in associate's program consist of general education courses and pretty much the areas of concentration, as I mentioned before. And again, yeah, students can also transfer after receiving an AA or an AS.
So when a student decides to transfer from a California community college to a 4-year university, they're transferring the units that they earned at their community college to their new school. Right, so the credits that you earned at community college are counted towards the required number of units you will need to graduate once you enter that 4-year school. So for most semester 4-year schools, that's 120 units, and for quarter schools, that's 180 units. So to transfer, most of the time you need 60 semester units. So keeping that in mind, you're doing half of your education or half of your units at the community college and the other half once you transfer to the 4-year school. So if you think of like a high school example, you would do 9th and 10th grade, say at one school, and then you would switch to another school to do 11th and 12th. So for general education courses, this is something that everybody needs to complete regardless of whether you're going to a community college or if you're going to a 4-year school. So a good way to think about general education courses in college is to think of like your A through G requirements, right? Everybody has to complete these certain requirements in math, English, science, history in order to be prepared for that next step, right? So it's a very similar idea. So you take these courses in different subject areas so that way you can work towards completing your bachelor's degrees. So GEs are also necessary to receive the associate's degree. So if you are planning to get an AA, then you would need to complete those GEs out as well. If you're planning to get a transfer certificate, you would also need to complete those GEs. If you're planning to get a regular vocational certificate, then you would not need those GEs. So this is specifically for transferring. So a good way to get a jump on these general education courses and know that you're on the right path, right, is to select a major early. So maybe you can select some GEs that are more in your interest, right? So if you have to do a science class, like a physical science, maybe you take physics or maybe you take geography. So there's a lot of different options, maybe depending on your major that you're more comfortable taking. And again, so by selecting your major early, you can really start looking at those transferable classes and building your transfer plan. All right, so there are additional ways to transfer to a 4-year college. We've kind of touched on them a little bit. So as we mentioned before, the associate degree for transfer means that students can earn a guaranteed spot at participating 4-year colleges. So this is really important, at participating colleges. So not all of the colleges and all majors that you're interested in will participate in this program, but a lot of them do. So it's an easier way to transfer for Cal State universities, for University of California's, and historically Black colleges and universities. So you can select an associate degree for transfer by getting an AA or getting an AS. And so with the associate's degree for transfer, there is a specific plan, right? So you would pick your major, say child development, right? There is a specific website. It's actually the associate degree for transfer, degree for guarantee that you see on the screen right here. You can go to that website as a beginning search and you can look up your major. You can look at what colleges are accepting these associate degree for transfer. And of course, you always want to meet with your counselor when talking about your transfer plans. So this is just one way to transfer. You can get an ADT, and then I'm going to continue talking about the other ways you can as well. Okay. So what if you know that you for sure want to go to a University of California, a UC? So there's something called the Transfer Admissions Guarantee, or the TAG. So to qualify, you must complete your 60 semester units or 90 quarter units, like we talked about a little bit earlier. You have to take the appropriate classes for your major. So again, there is a definite transfer plan and pathway. They set all the classes out that you need, so you need to follow that. You need to make sure that you're passing all of your classes with a C or better. That's going to stand regardless of what transfer plan you are. You need to make sure that you're passing all those classes with a C or better. You must maintain a 2.4 GPA. And again, you just want to remember that not all majors are going to be guaranteed and not all of the campuses are going to participate. So particularly for the TAG, there are a couple of the more popular schools or the ones that more people apply to that don't participate in this program. So like UC Berkeley, UCLA, they do not participate in this program, but a lot of the other UCs do. Okay, so IGETS or CSU General Education. So you're going to hear these terms a lot once you go into community college because they're very popular transfer plans. So the IGETS stands for Intersegmental General Education Transfer Curriculum. So you don't need to memorize all of that as long as you know what the IGETS is. But it basically verifies that students have completed all of their lower division general education requirements for UC or CSU. So it's almost like a universal transfer plan. So maybe you're not sure when you go in if you want to go to UC or a CSU, or maybe you know for sure that you're going to be applying to all the schools or both UCs and CSUs, then the IGETS would be the best bet for you. If you know for sure that you want to go to a California State University, a CSU, then there's something called the CSU certification. So it verifies that students have completed all of the lower division requirements specifically for the CSU. And along with this, there's something called assist.org, and we're going to go in the next slide in more detail. But assist.org, along with a counselor, can help you determine your transfer plan. So assist.org is a really cool website where you can look up different transfer plans based on your community college. So we'll continue talking about that on the next slide. So Assist is a student transfer information system. And like I said, it displays all the reports of how course credits are earned at a California community college and can be applied once they transfer to a CSU or a UC. So this is going to be very helpful throughout your time at community college because you can go in, if you can see kind of the pictures on the side of the screen, you can search by academic year, you can search by institution. So you can look at your community college that you're at, or the college that you want to transfer to. Look at your major and you can see what courses are required at that specific school that you want to transfer to. So let's take LACC. Maybe you're at LACC doing communications and you want to see what the requirements are to transfer to UCLA. You would type in LACC in the search bar and then UCLA and then communications, and it'll pop up with a transfer plan. And it's going to outline everything you need specifically attending LACC to UCLA, right? If there's any special requirements, any general education, and just your overall classes that you need. So very, very important to get familiar with Assist so that you know exactly what you need to do. So we have a little video here and let's see if it'll play. So it's okay if you can't hear it, but just kind of to see what Assist is, because it is a new layout this year, but it is a very helpful website. Let's see. I don't know if it's gonna play. Okay, so this just talks about a little bit about the different transfer plans that are available and how to use Assist. So just an introduction, so we don't have to watch the whole thing. There, yeah, so you can kind of see the layout when you first log into Assist. But yeah, so you will be getting very familiar with this, like I said, so just to see kind of how it works. Okay, so in addition to transferring and completing GEs, there are career training opportunities. So California community colleges have over 200 workforce training programs. That's a lot. So varies school by school. Some community colleges have very well-known programs for different vocational training programs. So if you think of like LA Trade Tech, right? They are known for their vocational programs. So if that is something that you're thinking of, that's a great option, right? That's not to say other community colleges don't have training programs, but there's very specialized, they have very specialized programs at Trade Tech. So in addition to the hands-on training that you get while in these programs, they're intended to teach specific skills, right? So for example, automotive engineering, right? You're learning specifically about cars. EMT, right? You're learning very specific skills to be an EMT. These programs they tend to be shorter than bachelor's degrees programs and some AA programs. Some of them can be 18 months, some of them can be 2 years. It really depends because everything is so specialized for these career training programs.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about how to apply and register. So we're going to kind of focus on like the step-by-step. So usually if you haven't already created or have taken like college classes, so dual enrollment classes, you would want to create an initial account. For those of you that have already taken community college classes, I know some of you may have taken classes through LACC, you should already have a student ID number and should already have an account. So you would not have to do the community college actual like initial application, but you would have to actually apply for the fall. So it's important to, once you have already created a community college or have already completed the community college application, you need to go on to, going back to if you decide, depending on what school you decide that you would like to apply to, then you would go on their website, you can begin the application. So in this case, we chose LACC as an example. So you would click on begin application. Oh, sorry. And then you have to consider when you're applying to make sure that for your application checklist, you have your personal information, your full legal name, your date of birth. You do need your social security number and up-to-date mailing address, your phone number. So pretty much what information you need on the application or for the application is here on this checklist. So educational information, you need to select if you want to do an AA, if your transfer plan, so if you eventually would like to transfer or earn a certificate. And then colleges attended, you also need to include your intended major. So the application also does ask you, if you want to be a part of certain activities on campus, things like that. So it'll ask you various questions. It's just a matter of going through the application thoroughly, making sure you complete it, and just making sure you answer all the questions to the best of your ability. So I know I mentioned that some of you may need to enter your social security number. If you do not have one, there is an option to select that you do not have a social security number, and you can bypass that. So you can move past the application.
Okay, so continuing on with other things that you need to consider when you're applying. So they are going to ask you information about your parents, and this is for demographic reasons, but also for financial aid purposes. So it looks very similar to like a page out of the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. So they ask you questions to determine if you're a dependent student. They ask you questions about your parents' highest level of education and if you're a first generation college student. And then like Miss Diane had mentioned, they ask institution specific information. So are you interested in any special programs that they have on that campus, any sports or any particular services? So that's a really good opportunity if you're like, oh, I know I'm going to need tutoring. I would like more information about tutoring, or I want to be on the volleyball team, or hey, I've heard about EOP and S. I want more information. So like Miss Diane said, it's really about going through the application very thoroughly and making sure that if you have any questions that you're asking, because if you do answer something incorrectly, it's really hard to go back in and edit it, particularly if it's identifying information like name, address, and all that stuff.
Okay, so here is another part of after you apply, you do need to complete an online orientation. And that usually takes an hour or so if you want to spend like a good hour on it. Sometimes it may take a little longer, but it's pretty much just for you to learn about the school that are applying to, or that you're by this time you have already applied. So it's pretty much just learning about the school. It's learning about, you know, what resources they have on campus. So it can be a mix of videos, and then at the end they'll ask you a few questions. So in order to actually enroll in your classes, you do need to make sure that you complete these steps. So you need to complete your orientation, take an assessment or course placement. So some of the schools may not offer the assessment now, but they will have like a survey that you can take in order to figure out what classes you should be placed in. And then you have to create an educational plan. So that will be with the counselor on campus. And you need to, especially right now, just because everything is virtual, you do need to schedule a virtual meeting with the college counselor.
You will then be able to register for your classes. So you're going to log in to your student portal. And if you need help with this, obviously you can ask a counselor, or you can reach out to anybody at the Fulfillment Fund and start picking your classes. So for LACC, we included screenshots. It gives you a walkthrough of how to do this. So once you do register for your classes, the next step is to pay for your fees. So your student portal information is going to be very important, because that's going to be the hub of where you're going to find all of this information. So your class registration information, your fee information. And then lastly, you're going to make sure that you're going to want to make sure that you explore student support programs. So we'll talk a little bit more about what those options are, but it's really important that after you've completed kind of all the quote unquote necessary steps, that you do take this next step to see where you can get support on campus, because that's really going to be important for your success, right? So it's not just going to classes and making sure you're registering on time, but it's how you're going to be successful in those classes. So even though it doesn't seem like this is an essential step, I would say, and I'm sure Ms. Dan agrees as well, that this is a very important step of your registration and application process.
Okay, so now we can go on to the next steps. It's always extremely important to make sure that you do check your portal. So you will receive login information, your student ID, to whatever school you decide to attend. So let's say you're going to LACC, you will have an LACC student portal. And that is where you can view like your transcripts. You can see if you need to turn in any financial documents that the school may be asking you for, complete like student surveys. Make sure that you are constantly checking your student portals. A lot of times colleges or community colleges might not email you directly, so they'll just put things on your student portal. So it's extremely, extremely important that you check it. Make sure that you are checking, again, your financial aid to see if there's like any fees that you need to pay and that may not be covered, because a lot of times they will place like a hold on things and you may not be able to register for your classes. There's also, you know, the student ID and the lab fees and other course material that will be on there as well. But also make sure that you check your student email. So each of the schools will provide you with the school email. So please make sure after, you know, you apply and you already are registered for your classes and you technically become an LACC student, you will receive the student email, and from there on, that's where they would communicate with you as well.
So now you've registered for classes and you come into a problem. So things to keep in mind if your class is full. So just because you have your registration date and time and all of your requirements completed, that does not necessarily mean that you're going to get the classes that you need right away. So a lot of classes tend to be full. And for first-time freshmen, if you don't have any prior units or haven't taken any classes, then the likelihood that you have one of the later registration dates is pretty high, right? Especially if you haven't completed all of your requirements early on. So here are some things that you can do if you find yourself in that situation where you're like, oh my goodness, these classes that I need are full. What do I do next? So number one, you can crash the course. So what that means is you show up on the first day of class. You can talk to the professor and say, hey, I'm interested in being part of this class, but I know it's full. Can I be on the wait list? So you show up the first day of class. Depending on who shows up, who's actually registered, there may be people who drop and there may be seats that are open. So at that point, depending on how many people are waiting there, you may be offered a spot in the class. So the professor will give you something called either a course ad card or a course ad code, and then you'll be able to go in and register for that full class. So that's just one option. It's pretty common. A lot of students do it like every semester. for four-year classes and for community college classes. See, another option is attending summer and winter sessions. So maybe during the school year, that math class or that psych class that you really need is constantly full, but you notice that they offer it during a summer or a winter session. So these are good options because they're pretty quick, right? So if you feel like you can keep up with the pace of summer and winter, they're great options to get classes out of the way. And honestly, if you want to transfer on time or just be done with your certain requirements in a timely manner, I would suggest that you do take summer and winter classes. It lightens your load during the regular school year, but also make sure that you're on track with everything that you need to do. Another option, if your class is full or you can't find a class that you need, is a dual enrollment. So this means you are enrolling in multiple community colleges or two community colleges at the same time. So what's really cool about the Los Angeles Community College District is that there's 9 community colleges all within the same district. So you don't get a separate student ID number. You don't have to, do anything extra. You would just register at that campus. So there would need to be a little bit of back and forth between your home school, quote unquote, and the school that you want to take other classes at. But it's a relatively straightforward process, and it's a really good option if you're finding that at your home school, say like LACC or Santa Monica, classes are filling up quick. You can take it at a different school, West LA, Harbor College, whatever's convenient for you. And then another option that's always good, regardless of what your situation is reaching out to instructors, right? So maybe you're not able to attend the first day, always reach out, right? You never know. The professors are going to know their department requirements and their class the best, so it never hurts to ask. So the worst thing they're going to say is no, and then you're back to where you started, so at least you took the chance and now you know for sure, right? So always communicate with your instructors, ask to see if there's any way you can add the class. If it's an online class, which a lot of classes may be in the fall, then you reach out and just ask if you can get the course code. So all of these steps you can try if your classes are full. And of course, if you're trying all these things and you still need help, definitely reach out to anybody on your campus or one of us. Okay, so resources. So we talked about how it's really important that you get support on campus and that you are connecting with people who can support you and help you along the way. So this is just a list of some of the support services that are on a lot of community college campuses. So first year experience, this is a program, as you can guess, for first year students. And they support you through that first year with academic advisors, workshops. So it's really important, or their mission is that to support first year students to help you get into that second year and hopefully transfer on time, right? EOP&S, it can provide counseling services, advising. Sometimes they can provide different book vouchers and meal vouchers, and this is based on income. CalFresh, they can help you with money for groceries, again, based on income. And now on all community college campuses, they have somebody there to help you apply for CalFresh. There's Umoja, Puente, Black Collegians, and these are identity-based programs, and they really help with student retention, right? So however you identify or any program that you want to check out, you can feel free to do that, and it's not just for that particular identity, right? So like Black Collegians isn't just for students who identify as Black students. Anybody can apply and anybody can be part of these programs. The transfer center is going to be really important, right? If you're thinking of transferring, there's plenty of resources there. They usually will host workshops for college applications, and they'll have people come in from certain campuses to talk to you. So it's really cool to get familiar with that center. The DSPS office. So if you have a learning disability or any type of learning difference or disability that you feel like you would need support with, you can go to this office and receive accommodations. It could be testing anxiety. Maybe you need longer times to take tests or someone to help you take notes. All of those services are available to you. There is an international students office on every campus, which is really, really important because there are certain specific situations for particular visas, particularly for financial aid. It's really important that if you do need international student services, that you do go to the specific office because they're going to be very well trained in those specific situations. And then as on all college campuses, there's a tutoring center and then a psychological and wellness service center. So whether you need help with academics or you need help with your mental health or just, being healthy overall, there are all those services available to you on those campuses. And last but not least, you have Fulfillment Fund as a resource. So there's something new this year that we're rolling out for all of our students called College Success. So just like you guys went through high school with Fulfillment Fund as a support system, you will still be able to have Fulfillment Fund as a support system through college. So regardless of where you're going to college, whether it's a community college or a 4-year, and regardless of whether you're in our scholarship program, we will still be there to offer support and services. So we're still there to offer you one-on-one advising and help with, financial aid and picking classes, or even if, you're having a rough time and you just need someone to talk to you about how everything's going at school. So we are always going to be there for college. And then we also have our Transfer Scholars Program. So that's our scholarship portion for our community college students, and we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation.
So here are some tips for success, especially right now that we're doing a lot of things virtually and on traditional campuses. So we just kind of want to make sure that, as you're thinking about this, you have these tips. So make sure that you are making connections with staff and students, that you're meeting with the counselor regularly. So if you feel like, you're maybe falling behind, you feel like you're a little lost in, what classes you should be taking, or if you feel like you're not sure if you're on the right path. So just make sure that you're constantly, meeting with your counselor. I would say maybe at least like once or twice a semester, if that. And make sure that you are also communicating early with the professor. So it's really important to just introduce yourself to the professors. I know that sometimes it can be a bit intimidating, but please just make sure that you are talking to professors, especially if you are struggling in some of the classes. It's important to, just share and build that relationship with the professor so they know who you are and they are a little more understanding to it. Explore different programs on campus that can offer additional support. So there are going to be a lot of resources on campus that you can take advantage of. It's just a matter of being aware what resources each campus offers. So please make sure that you are taking advantage of like tutoring. Maybe if you're struggling in writing, you can get a writing tutor. If you're struggling in math, there are like office hours that you can attend. And make sure that you check in with yourself. Just making sure that you're on track with your own goals and your progress. And yeah, just make sure that, if this is done at the moment, like virtually, that you are checking in with the counselor virtually. When it comes time to start your classes, the classes may transition into virtual classes. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more soon. So education during uncertain times, again, as I mentioned, right now, everything is kind of virtual. Things are still kind of up in the air, and some of the classes, at least for the fall, are switching to virtual. So make sure that, when you're enrolling in your classes, again, you meet with the college or counselor online. And I know that some of you may have questions on like what fall will look like, but it is important to kind of, keep your options open and see, just stay up to date. So those are things that we will email you on and just update you on anytime we hear information. But these are definitely, uncertain times. So we want to make sure that you are in the loop of what's going on. I know that things are constantly changing. So for now, Olivia, have you heard anything in regards to like the fall being fully online, or is it just still kind of up in the air?
So for right now, at least for LACCD, they've just announced that summer is going to be fully online, but there hasn't been anything concrete announced for fall. I would assume that it's going to be at least partially online, especially since so many of the 4-year universities are going online for fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you do have any concerns, let's say that they do switch over virtual for the fall, it is important to just, still follow through with your plan. So if you can still register for classes in the fall, that way you're still on like the right path to at least like transferring in 2 years or earning that like AA degree. So just make sure that you are still enrolling in your classes in the fall and you are following along with, everything that the colleges are asking you for.
Yeah, and I would just emphasize, even though it is, there is a lot of uncertainty right now, the colleges at all levels are working really, really hard to make sure that they're serving students and modifying things because they know that it's difficult right now. especially for like transfer admissions or students applying to college right now. The universities are modifying requirements and putting pauses on a lot of things. So if that's something that's worrying you, like, is my college going to know that I was struggling because of this pandemic? Yes, there's a lot of policies in place. I mean, they're working really, really hard to make sure that students aren't getting penalized for what's happening right now. So don't lose hope. I know that can be really hard right now, but try to stay optimistic and try to stay on track as you can. This is the post-secondary team. So as you all move on into college, you will be working with us. So myself, who I'm there in the middle on this slide, we have Bridget, who also works with us. She works with our first year and second year students at our four-year colleges. And then we have Gus. He is the associate director of our program, and he'll introduce himself a little bit later. Okay, so as we said, Fulfillment Fund is still going to be there for you through college, regardless of whether you're part of our scholarship program. But we do have a scholarship. So we have a scholarship for our four-year bound students and for our community college transfer students. So it's really exciting. So we do want to make sure that we're supporting you throughout college and, in the advising piece and making sure that we're able to talk to you and connect with you. But we also know that the financial piece of it is very important. So we do offer this opportunity for you all to apply for a scholarship. So here are some of the requirements that I have on the screen for our Transfer Scholars Program. So you must have a 2.0 GPA. Your plan must be to transfer to a four-year college or university, right? So the name of the program is Transfer Scholars Program. So that is what we're hoping to support you in, is your eventual transfer. You will be asked to provide 3 short responses in the application. Download a transfer agreement, which you'll get on assist.org, which we talked about a little bit. Upload a SAR or a CalSAR from your financial aid application. And if you've already completed your community college application and orientation, we are going to ask you to upload proof of that. So what do you get out of the program? So if you apply, you put in all this work and you're accepted, what do you get out of it? So it is an annual scholarship. So we pay you out twice a year. We offer academic advising, financial aid advising, all the type of support that you would have gotten in high school. You'll still continue to receive that in college. So we offer professional development as well. So right now we're doing webinar workshops for our college students about grad school. So we offer a lot of those types of opportunities and other special opportunities. Maybe it's, we know, someone's offering an internship and they ask us to, nominate a student, right? So those are the types of opportunities that you can have if you are accepted into the Transfer Scholars Program. So below you can see when the application opens. So it opens today. So you guys are getting to see this first, and then it will close on May 22nd. So you have a good chunk of time to be able to do the application, and we are going to be hosting other workshops to go more in depth about the application process and if you need help completing it as well.